I just wanted to say thank you so much for taking the time again. And the first interview I saw of yours was actually Coffee with Karan when I was a kid. I'm a big Bollywood fanatic, so I've seen everything. I'm going to delve into the more philosophical core of Laapataa Ladies. I absolutely loved the movie. I saw Dhobi Ghat as well, and I saw that you even were, I believe, an assistant director on Monsoon Wedding, one of my favorite. Mira Nair is awesome as
Yeah.
well. Um,
Yes.
I know you have limited time. I'm gonna ask some questions. So, Lapata
Mhm.
Ladies uses the metaphor of being lost to frame the narrative behind it, beyond literal disappearance of the women, which is literally tying to the lost aspect. Do you see their journey as a reflection of their, I guess, their existential search for identity within such a patriarchal society?
Um, we definitely wanted to use the term lost or lapata in that more sort of broad sense of women being in some way absent from the whole discourse about women or about what we should be as a society. So, in terms of using it as a way to frame the argument that we need to draw more women into this conversation about identity, about their freedoms, about their purpose, about giving them more space within very, very conventional sort of societal setups. Um, we 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 definitely aimed for the the term lost to encompass all those meanings. Certainly, on a more personal level, it was meant to reflect this search for identity, which I think a lot of girls and women do face, especially because there's so much societal expectation on them to be a certain way and to fulfill certain obligations or needs that their families have of them. So the search for their own identity is honestly for most women a luxury. You don't have the opportunity or the time to be able to do that. Um, so it is something that is left unfulfilled, which we feel that every girl, given a chance, would love to do that, would want to, explore what she's capable of and to find her own happiness.
Something I actually loved a little nuance was, well, feminism is about choice, and Poole's character allows her to embrace the traditional sense as well as also just feeling empowered and finding her own sense of agency. So I'm just kind
Mhm.
of honestly in a little bit of awe on how you were able to kind of balance the two, striking a balance between her own sense of, just finding herself, discovering that she can also be independent, especially when she talks to Manjumai and that whole scene where she's like, how can you live alone and everything? And she learns that it's possible to live alone, but at the same time, she does also enjoy and partake in the, I guess, like the traditional sense about, like finding a family, being part of a family, being someone's wife at the same time. So I guess like that was such a beautiful comparison and a unique comparison. So I wanted to hear your opinions on the balance of agency and that.
Um, yeah, through the film, we wanted to actually explore many different experiences that women and girls have from different backgrounds and at different stages in their lives. Um, and I think Pool offered that unique opportunity to try and find, to try and portray a girl who actually would want to be a homemaker, would want to sort of have a family. But at the same time, uh, can find the space to have her own personal identity and find out her own value and her own capability. I feel that that is something that's very important because many women and girls do not, like I said, have the luxury to sort of leave home and or maybe not just not have the luxury, do not have the desire to leave their homes and families. But there's always that space that they can have for themselves uh, uh, in order to kind of um, feel fulfilled, feel like they have a sort of they their identity is in some way separate as well from, their husbands as a couple or from their families. Um, and I think Pool very, correctly embodies that combination of both independence as well as living in a unit as a family. One can have a sense of identity but live within the unit of a family is what we were hoping that she would portray.
And you did such a wonderful job doing exactly that, especially in another scene with, the food and that specific lotus root sabzi. I'm forgetting the Hindi term, but basically this entire like tension between the individual's inner world and their inner identity and the roles that they're assigned to by society, particularly for women in traditional setups. And how marriage, especially in rural India and well, everywhere, forget India, marks the beginning of a woman's kind of social stories. Like, my idea is marriage in rural India marks the beginning of a woman's socially defined and sometimes even dictated life. And
Hmm.
by disrupting this moment, especially in the scene where the mother of the household in that lotus root sabzi scene wants to cook
Yeah.
some he wants for, herself, and she hasn't in a while because of just what the family's likes and manpasand choices are. How do you kind of propose this alternative narrative for women's selfhood?
I I think we're very accustomed is thanks to um, I don't know, soap operas and depictions of women in stereotypes that women are meant to compete with each other and women have to fight to find, uh, fight for, in some ways, power within a household. And, and we really wanted to propose the alternative of sisterhood, of solidarity, of friendship between women. Um, I think it's a very powerful thing. We all are very nourished by it and get a great sense of support from the women in our own lives. And I think in in not just in rural India, but anywhere in the world, I think one of the things women struggle with is this balance between tending to their families and looking after themselves. More often than not, women don't make themselves a priority because they're very busy tending to the needs of everyone else. And I think what the film was hoping to kind of address was the fact that it is really very important to also do the things that you love, to give yourself time and space to look after yourself, because you are equally important. And I think many women, because of the pressures put on them and because of the assumption that the family has to be number one in everything, tend to not put themselves at the center of their own lives. So that's something that we really hoped to kind of maybe address through that post dinner scene that you were talking about.
You most definitely did. Philosophically speaking, like, is laughter in this film also like a form of liberation, a moment where the characters and even the audience can transcend through their, I guess, like inner immediate struggle? Use, yeah,
Yes,
humor
yes,
even,
absolutely.
yeah.
Yes, I fully agree with you. And that's a great way to put it, actually. It is a liberation. It's liberating to be able to laugh at things that you have, so long considered a problem. It's liberating and empowering to be able to laugh at these things, that shackles that hold us down in some way. So certainly we wanted to use humor as that liberating and uniting kind of tool, where you feel closer to each other and you're able to cross these divides and free yourself from, in some ways, the shadow of patriarchy, the shadow of expectations, through conservative society, through stereotypes, through expectations of women. So, yeah, I absolutely agree with you.
Yes, definitely. And I want to also kind of ask something I learned is a lot of this movie didn't use technology and that sort of like modern gadgets that are available today. So how do you think specifically like would that sort of looked like if maybe let's say, like Pool or Jaya saw someone on social media and were inspired, something of that sort. I know that's like a little bit of a deviation, but I was just thinking from that
Yeah.
perspective, what would that have looked like?
That's a very interesting question. I think technology and sort of modern forms of communication have changed many, many things, not just interpersonal, but also deeply internal as well. Um, how we would connect with someone else, of course, has changed dramatically. We expect to be able to be in touch with people on a momentary basis. We expect answers to all our questions immediately, where we would wait weeks. People would wait weeks to get an answer to a question. So that um, that gratification that we are accustomed to would not be there instantly. But apart from that, it also changes a sense of self very deeply. So I think in this story, it would, if I think Pool and Jaya, and perhaps any of the young women who are in, across the world, but certainly in rural India or India today, who have access to the technology, would have many, many different things to deal with, and also to, in some ways, help them question how they live, or what they want from life, or um, their identity even. So it has complicated our lives definitely beyond imagination. So which is why we did want to stay with a more simple time, when things were not so much sort of mediated by technology. So uh I can't imagine Pool and Jaya. Well, I can see them as Nitanshi and Pratibha on social media today. And if one just thinks of what Pool and Jaya would have say done with Instagram had they had it, it would be interesting to see whether that would completely change their relationships with their families and themselves.
Yeah. No, yeah, it's something I thought of as, some
Mm,
avid Instagram user.
yeah.
In a scene where Manju Mai says the very famous dialogue that women can farm, women can cook, women can give birth to children, raise them. I have it memorized. If you think
Mm,
about it, women don't really basically need men, that sort of dependency. And even
mm,
today, when you see modern women, successful, independent modern women in relationships, they sometimes even through that or even through breakups, they sometimes feel like they've lost a bit of their own sense of independence. And seeing
mhm,
someone to look up to, an older woman advising a younger woman this, that entire scene is just so beautiful because it's kind of like a lot of women fear the idea of being alone,
mhm,
especially today. And looking at that scene, especially like younger women like me as well, for sure, saw that, and my thought was like, what are we so afraid about? What is so frightening about
mm.
being alone and giving that sort of sense of confidence? So that was one of the best dialogues in the movie, arguably in the year I saw in Bollywood today, this year. How was it created? How did you
Mm.
come up with that? What was your thought process like? And why this sort of dynamic for that?
Hmm. Well, that amazing dialogue is by Sneha Desai, my screenwriter, and she has an incredible way of encapsulating very big ideas into very simple and beautiful dialogue. Um, I My contribution to that really was ensuring that we had a character like Manjumai in the story, which wasn't there in the earlier draft. But all the sort of aspects of the character of Manjumai and how she actually was are all created by Sneha. And we just actually, both of us discussed what we really wanted the character to stand for, and how she, in some ways, would help Pool question many of her long held views. Um, And so after that, once we discussed that, Sneha went on to create this character and write these lines. So the credit really for this incredible dialogue, which is also one of my favorite dialogues in the whole film, is goes entirely to Sneha. And and I think it's something that she also is really really proud of. We it just as an interesting uh side note, that's a much longer dialogue in the screenplay when she wrote it, and I actually edited it down. And if you're interested to read the original, it's on filmcompanion.com, the whole script, the original shooting draft, and you can read, because actually she says she has many more examples. Women do this, women do that, women can do this, women can do that. And it went on much longer, and we shot it as well. But the edit kind of only allowed us to keep a little bit of it. So, yeah.
It's a dialogue that not only like touched someone from, I guess, like a modern sense like me, but also touched so many women, I'm sure. And I thought it was so well written. And it's just a testament to a lot of women out there that feel fearful about being independent and alone, fully independent. I think
Mm.
like my other question is also just delving into the world beyond the veil of patriarchy with such simplicity and so subtly. I think like
Mm.
a lot of movies, and they do a good job as well, don't get me wrong, but they are very, I guess, not necessarily over the top, but it's also very, very clear. It's very, it's protruding, that sort of those scenes, and they're very kind of in your face type scenes. I like the subtle portrayal of feminism as well here instead of those sort of over the top scenes. So what was that like something part of your strategy? And I've noticed the subtlety part is also part of, Toby God as well. There are subtle
Mm.
scenes about just what is that like just part of your filmmaking style, or was that something thought about? Like
Yeah, I mean, I guess a lot of it comes down to style and what kind of tone appeals to me as a filmmaker. I really do think that audiences are very quick to pick up detail. They don't need spoon feeding at all. And subtlety is often, much more effective in conveying what we want to convey, rather than bashing someone on the head with something very overt or very obvious. So, yeah, subtlety is something that I kind of, as a viewer, appreciate and try to use a lot in my approach to any material.
along with that, women are told to be so, I guess, perfect all the time. Something I appreciated about this is embracing mistakes and even just getting lost. Jaya's entire character of, going against what her family's idea of perfection is, her mother's idea of perfection is, getting married and whatever the mom has defined for her. I guess like was it like this sort of like I guess existential rebellion, this forced moment where the women are no longer kind of defined by their
The the idea of rebellion, in a sense, was built into the story. It's a subtle tool, because we do it as if, we do it through a mistake, that these girls get an opportunity to do something, but that mistake really enables them to kind of set out on a path to find what they really want to do. So I think a rebellion begins with with actually allowing yourself to think that there is that there's the way that you have always followed is not necessarily the only way, or the way that society is built is not the only way society should be built. So it begins with questioning. It begins with curiosity. And I think that's the important thing that the film was trying to show, was that, look, you have to take that first step. And it doesn't look like a rebellion when you start off like that, but it can be a very sure and slow change that you're working towards.
That's interesting. How I interpreted it as was the first step is the act of rebellion, and then after that, it's more about change and, just dealing with the rebellion, which is a whole other struggle. And they show that very well. You show that very well with Jaya's character, you and Sneha.
Well, the idea actually was not to set it up as uh, rebellion per se. I mean, on the face of it, it's encouragement. It's encouraging people to just take that first step because most women are not encouraged. The second you tell them that, oh, yeah, we're going to be dismantling patriarchy and we're smashing things and we are, you know, it just feels too overwhelming for most women. But the idea that small and what seems to be insignificant step can lead you in a radical new direction is at its very revolutionary at its core. It needs that first step that needs that exploration, I think.
I see. Got it. And like adding on to that, just freedom, a lot of philosophers debate whether freedom is found in belonging or in escape. And this sort of like, do the women in Laapataa Ladies find this sort of, I guess, like the idea of finding liberation in their, I guess, like temporary estrangement altogether? Or is the journey about reconciling individuality with societal structures? What do you say about that?
Beautiful question. Uh, I think um, I think it's definitely both in good measure. It needs, I think as individuals, we all feel constrained by, the roles that we've been assigned in life, and we all want that, sort of freedom to run away at some point. Everybody wants to run away at some point, but we are pack creatures. I mean, we are like, we belong in herds, we belong in groups, and we long for that as well. So I think it's definitely a combination of finding freedom within uh you know I don't know, in a within a familial structure or a societal structure that gives us this kind of support that we need, that will ultimately be the long term sort of scenario. But I mean, at different times, both are necessary. Sometimes it's really important for us to kind of consolidate and be supported and loved and stay within a societal unit. And sometimes it's important to just for us to challenge ourselves and to try something new and to go down a new path and strike out on our own.
I guess like if there's one thing or one response that you've gotten a mix of two questions. So one is like I'm sure there was such an overwhelming response of all women, women like me, women from rural India, talking about the amazing film you and Sneha have created. But along with that, is there any sort of like takeaway, if there are like couple takeaways that you wanted to just give to women all across the world?
Uh, Takeaways. I think very importantly, I would say be kind to yourself. Give yourself a break. Give yourself a lot of love. I think we are so busy often looking after other people and doing what other people require of us that we don't do the same for ourselves. And I think it the most important takeaway I would think would be um, to give yourself time, space, and love.
Wow, that's beautiful to end on such a beautiful note. And to say I'm rooting for this film is an understatement, honestly. I've seen it maybe at
Thank
least
you.
5 times. Sajni Re is stuck in my head. Even Dautwa,
Mm.
a lot of jokes on that as
Oh,
well, but I love that song too. And it's just so beautiful and something that related to me as well, who doesn't come from, I guess, like the rural India background. And I could see myself as those women. And you and Sneha have done such a wonderful job. And I can't wait to see the amazing ways you dismantle the patriarchy through other mediums of filmmaking in the future.
thank you. I want to also thank you for such thoughtful questions. Really, really nice questions.
That means a
I
lot.
wasn't expecting that. So thank you.